today or a six-pack tomorrow. What happens in our brains that makes us avoid the things we know we ought to be doing? Behavioral scientists have discovered a phenomenon called time inconsistency, which helps us understand why we can procrastinate even when we have the best of intentions. Time inconsistency refers to the brain's tendency to value immediate rewards higher than future ones. Imagine that you had two selves, your present self and your future self. When you set goals for yourself, like building muscle, or writing a book, or learning a language, or asking the guy you fancy out for a date, you're actually setting plans for your future self. You imagine how you'd like your life to look like at some point in the future. Maybe you took my message from earlier to heart and have set a really juicy, dumb goal. Researchers have found that when you consider your future self, your brain has a fairly easy time seeing the point in doing things that grant long-term advantages. Your future self values long-term rewards because it is the version of you that will reap the benefits of your current efforts. While your future self can set goals, only your present self can actually take action. This is where things get messy. When the time comes to decide in the moment, you're no longer making a choice for your future self. Now, in the present, you're in charge, and your brain will focus mainly on the needs of your present self. Research studies have also established that the present self, surprise, surprise, very much prefers instant gratification. It's not big on long-term profit. As a result, we postpone what we ought to do in favor of doing what we want to do. This means that our present selves and our future selves are often at odds with one another. And your future self might want to be svelte and fit, but your present self right now is more interested in eating pastries. Similarly, many young people know that the retirement savings they make in their 20s and 30s are vital, but also that the benefits involved wouldn't come for many decades. It's a lot easier for the present self to see the value in buying a pair of new shoes than putting away $100 a month to enjoy in 70 years. This is one of the reasons why you might go to bed full of motivation to make a change in your life, but wake up surprised at how much less important it seems now. Rather than doing what you intended, you fall victim to the temptation of doing something much easier, whatever that might look like for you. How the 4 colors procrastinate. Now, nothing is ever quite that simple, of course. Naturally, different people procrastinate in different ways, for different reasons. Figuring out which category you belong to can help you overcome your procrastination habits and maybe even get some work done ahead of schedule occasionally. Just a thought. Now, let's get serious. We're all prone to falling into this trap. In fact, even hugely successful people can be pathological procrastinators. This doesn't mean, however, that everyone does it for the same reason or overcomes the challenges involved the same way. The key to conquering your own procrastinating nature is to figure out which group you belong to so that you can break with your own patterns and get the project done early for once. In the following sections, I'll give accounts of how each of the 4 colors relates to procrastination. Red. Reds often say things like, I do my best work under pressure. There's actually a grain of truth to this, although it's a pretty small grain. These types tend to coerce themselves into focusing by limiting the time they have to do a certain task. They'll often start on things they don't feel like doing late because they talk themselves into believing other things are more important. For many of them, the true reason for this is a fear of perfectionism. If they limit the time available, there's no way the task can be done to any unreasonable standards anyway, right? Quick and sloppy is a solution, but at least it gets done in the end. Regardless of the reason, it's probably not a sustainable approach to keep pressuring yourself like this. Their greatest challenge? Getting started early enough so that they don't have to rely solely on their ability to rush through a project. A possible solution? If you're a red, try turning your whole structure around and setting a start date. When you focus on when you're going to start on a task rather than when you hope to complete it, you'll be removing a huge weight from your shoulders. It'll free up more energy for the right things. A caveat is in order here. Many reds have a very basic mindset when it comes to priorities. I call it toughing it out or running away. They either work like crazy at something or ignore it completely. On or off. Those are the only options. Yellow. These procrastinators are huge victims of shiny object syndrome. They constantly keep coming up with new projects they want to pursue, only to abandon them a week later. It could even be just a couple of days or hours. If they don't get started, something else might very well outcompete that initial idea and the struggle for their attention. They're fascinated with the latest trends and are quick to implement, but seldom get around to following up. These individuals are actually good at making decisions and taking action. However, they end up wasting a lot of time unintentionally, and their efforts tend to fade as they don't align with work consistently for long enough to ever really see any results. If you're a yellow, your biggest challenge is this: completing things. Here's how you solve it. Make things stick. I mean that literally. Write down new ideas for projects on a sheet of paper, but don't start on them until you've finished whatever it is you were doing when you thought of them. Green. These people always claim to have too much on their plates. They're pros when it comes to filling their calendars, and they often feel exhausted just from thinking of everything they have to do. The most common excuse the rest of us hear from them is probably, "I'm just so busy." Whenever the word busy is used as an excuse not to do something, it's probably an indication that something else is going on. This is most often caused by the Greens' tendency to avoid anything they don't feel like dealing with. Rather than taking on a challenge head-on or admitting to themselves that they don't want to do something, they find it easier to blame their other priorities. With a bit of luck, they can even get away with it. If you're a Green, your major challenge is this: stop causing chaos that allows you to avoid dealing with the things you know you ought to be handling right now. Oftentimes, the thing they're procrastinating on isn't a task, but instead involves resolving a conflict or something along those lines. Your solution? Set aside some time for introspection. Ask yourself, what am I really avoiding, and why? Blue. This procrastinator strives for excellence, and when they don't do the things they should be doing, they tend to be particularly hard on themselves. They often blame their passivity on laziness or stubbornness rather than simply admitting that they're tired. What they really need to do is be more compassionate towards themselves. If you're a Blue, your main challenge is this: taking a break. I already know you're going to say that you don't have the time for that. Your solution? Recharging. Try to take a walk to give yourself the space you need to start replenishing your energy levels. Read a book. Rejuvenate yourself. Making your unreliable self more reliable. Unfortunately, you can't rely on long-term rewards to motivate your present self. If you get yourself believing that you can somehow manage X situation through sheer discipline, you'll only be fooling yourself. Instead, you need to find ways to move future rewards and punishments into the present. You need to turn future consequences into present consequences. This is exactly what happens in the moment when somebody manages to finally stop procrastinating and move to action. Let's say you have a report to write. You've known it was coming up for weeks, but you've kept pushing the start back day after day. You can feel that constant anxiety and concern whenever you think about that damned report, but the pain is still not sufficient to make you do anything about it. Then suddenly, one day before your deadline, you realize with horror that what you had seen as a future consequence, your boss's outrage at your having dragged your feet too long, is transitioning into the present. Within 24 hours, your ruse will be up, and your promotion could be on the line. You realize that you have no choice, so you work like a lunatic for 9 hours straight and manage to compile that blasted report just hours before it's due. It even turns out pretty good. The pain of postponing the work finally intensified, and you begin to act. Well done! But just imagine the anxiety and wasted positive energy you went through before you got there. The model above was designed by James Clear, the author of the international bestseller Atomic Habits. He describes this mechanism incredibly well. As soon as you act, the pain begins to recede. In fact, it's often more painful to be in the procrastination stage than it is to be in the work stage. The anxiety can feel like it's about to eat your whole. Point A in the diagram above is often more painful than point B. The anxiety you go through as a result of your sad attempts to postpone the inevitable tends to be worse than the effort and energy that go into performing a task itself. You know what you need to do. You just don't do it. If you want to stop procrastinating, you need to arrange things to make it as easy as possible for your present self to get started, and trust that your motivation and pace will pick up once you're actually doing the work. If you can find a way to make the advantages of long-term choices more immediate, you'll have an easier time keeping yourself from procrastinating. One of the best ways to move future rewards into the present is a strategy called temptation bundling. Temptation bundling is a concept that was developed by the behavioral economist Catherine Milkman at the University of Pennsylvania. Put simply, this strategy hinges on combining a behavior that benefits you in the long term with a behavior that feels rewarding in the short term. The basic idea is this: only do something you love at the same time as you do something you want to procrastinate. What follows are some common examples of temptation bundling. The principle is simple: kill two birds with one stone. Only listen to audiobooks or podcasts that you enjoy when you're on your exercise bike. Only watch your favorite TV show while you iron or mend socks. Is that still something people do? Only visit your favorite restaurant when you're in the company of somebody you can talk shop with. Only go to the nail salon if you can work on work emails while you're there. I know the examples are a bit convoluted, but you'll just have to use your imagination. There are plenty of ideas for making procrastination more uncomfortable as well. If, for example, you work out alone, it won't have much of an impact in your life if you skip a workout. Your health isn't going to crumble just because you missed one single training session. The price for postponing your training wouldn't get to be enough for you to notice until you've missed weeks or even months of workouts at the gym. However, if you commit to working out with a friend at 7 a.m. every Monday, you'll immediately feel the cost of skipping a workout more acutely. If you have a good training buddy, they'll get annoyed with you for missing it. Missing a single training session will leave you looking like a fool. Besides actively helping each other, you can always get your friend back when they try to skip a session for some reason. Another approach is to make a public pledge. If you break your pledge to go to the gym, or take your wife out to dinner, or help your 12-year-old with their homework, or not to eat chips more than once a month, you'll commit to paying a certain amount of money to some charity organization you have a serious distrust of. Basically, negative consequences are attached to any failure to do the right thing. Another way to stop procrastinating involves influencing your future actions in advance. You can regulate how much food you eat by buying smaller packages. It might mean you're paying more for the quantity you get, but at least you'll know you won't overeat. Remember that your unique goals have a huge impact on which activities are helpful and which ones are detrimental. You can stop wasting valuable time by removing games and social media apps from your phone. Similarly, you can prevent mindless channel surfing by hiding your television in a cabinet and only taking it out on certain days. You could even give your remote control to your grouchy neighbor and have him hide it from you. He'll almost certainly be happy to help. You can ask to be added to the blacklist of casinos and online gambling websites to prevent future gambling access. You can build up a financial buffer by arranging for an automatic transfer of funds to your savings account. These are all examples of planning that can help minimize the danger that you'll end up procrastinating. Another good approach is to break tasks into smaller, more doable chunks. British author Anthony Trollope was legendary for being enormously productive. Any writer will no doubt have heard of him and his incredible writing speed. He published 65 books in all, along with a bunch of short stories and several plays. How did he get all that done? Rather than count finished chapters or even whole books, he measured his progress in 15-minute intervals. He set a goal of writing 250 words in each 15-minute work session and spent 3 hours each day working under that regimen. This approach provided him with the instant feedback of success every 15 minutes. 4 times an hour! While he was actually working towards a larger goal of writing a whole book. If his writing session ended in mid-sentence, he stopped right where he was and finished his sentence the next day. In case you're a writer and you're reading this without feeling the slightest bit impressed, while he wrote all those books, Anthony Trollope also held down a fairly demanding full-time position for the Royal Mail in the UK. I've seen some of the novels he wrote, and they're huge books. He wrote 65 of them. No mean feat. Small steps of progress along the way will help you maintain your pace in the long term, which will make you more likely to finish big projects. Good, right? The quicker you can finish a productive task, the sooner you'll have established a pattern of productivity and efficiency. Being unhappy with yourself is a waste of energy. So where does all of this leave us? You'll be happy with your achievements, and being happy feeds you, yes, you know it, energy. Wasting time is wasting energy. Is there anything worse than finding yourself constantly short on time? It can be so stressful that it makes you sick just thinking of it. We've all been there. So much to do and so little time to do it. It's a draining equation. It robs you of your energy quite efficiently. Is there some way you could make better use of your time? As a matter of fact, there is. More than anything, this is a matter of how you relate to the very concept of time. Would you like to know who your greatest enemy is in this battle for your time? Hold on, and I'll get you a mirror. The most common excuse I hear from the people I meet is that they're definitely going to do all that important stuff when they can find the time. It's all gonna happen soon, down the road, when there's more time. Willpower isn't enough. I discussed that earlier. Even if you're a pretty productive person, I'm sure you'd like to increase your productivity even more. The problem with all the time management systems is that they're all based on logical thinking. Prioritize this, delegate that. I'm sure that's all very well. It's just that we're not logical and rational. We're emotional. If you've set aside a Tuesday evening at home to catch up on work, but your partner comes in for a quick chat, your whole system will go out the window. Because you're an emotional being, you'll invest your attention in your partner rather than your work. I have nothing to say about your spending time with your family, except this obvious fact. The work wouldn't be getting done. The most common approaches to time management involve some variation on prioritizing, ranking various tasks by how urgent and important they are. While there's essentially nothing wrong with prioritizing, there's an obvious flaw to this approach. It can't actually give you more time. All it can really do is move the tasks in your to-do list around so that what used to be number 3 becomes number 9. We're simply borrowing time from Peter to pay Paul. The problem here is that you actually end up wasting even more time by setting priorities. You still have just as much to do, you just have even less time to do it than before. The right question to ask yourself to avoid this kind of high-level energy drainage is this. What's the best thing I can do today to make things better tomorrow? I'm going to give you a method now that isn't based on prioritizing things, but rather on removing things from your to-do list that should never have been there in the first place. I've used this method myself with great success for more than 2 decades. On the left side are the things you should never do, ever. Note, you're taking them off the list forever. That's why I'm calling them the wrong things. If for some inexplicable reason you insist on doing the wrong things, you can, as you see, at least decide whether to do them the wrong way or the right way. On the right side are the right things. These are the things you should be doing. You can do them either the right way or the wrong way. It's pretty simple, isn't it? There's no need for it to be any more complicated than this. The right things in the right way. If you do the right things the right way, it will make you one of the top managers, assistant nurses, plumbers, influencers, IT engineers, business owners, driving school instructors, authors, brain surgeons, or whatever it is you choose to do. You do exactly what you're supposed to do in precisely the right way. It works like a charm. The right things in the wrong way. Second best is getting the right things done, but doing them the wrong way. Why is this second best? Well, the right thing the wrong way is still the right thing. Since it's unlikely that you could become the world champion at everything right away, you might as well start doing X as often as possible to make sure you learn how to do it. This is where you're at just before you enter the last stage. The right things in the right way. The wrong things in the wrong way. Spending time on things that wouldn't get you where you want to go and doing them poorly on top of that? No thank you. Setting yourself up for a load of work you don't know the first thing about and doing an awful job of it? There's no denying the countless millions of hours that end up in this box every year all over the world. Your friend asks you to help her wallpaper her new apartment. You're happy to help, but you don't have the faintest idea what you're doing. Before you know it, you'll be covered in glue, with wallpaper plastered at all kinds of angles. You've never done any wallpapering before after all. The only good news is that she's unlikely to ask you again. The wrong things in the right way. This box is a dangerous trap. It might actually be the best way to waste time ever invented. Doing the wrong thing well. You might be thinking it's at least halfway right, which doesn't sound so bad. However, doing the wrong things the right way is the worst way to spend your time due to the simple fact that it gives you the deceptive idea that things are going well. It's very easy to be tempted to do something that you feel you are good at. But think about it. Getting good at something that wouldn't actually help you? You work in an office and you're an expert at fixing the printers when they get jammed. You've figured out how to get them up and running again. Could you possibly imagine any bigger waste of time and resources than becoming the department's auxiliary IT guy when you actually have a job of your own you should be doing? Getting really good at something unrelated to the task at hand is madness. What you choose to do in your spare time is your business, of course. Then, you're free to indulge in whatever you enjoy and don't need to consider whether it's getting you where you need to go or not. However, if you've promised your partner you will mow the lawn by the weekend and you start sorting screws in the garage instead of getting the lawnmower out, you're just wasting time. What could be more inefficient than perfectly doing a job that didn't even need to be done in the first place? This brings us to the actual point of this section. You want new positive energy, right? You don't want to be spending your life doing things that drain you of the hard-won energy you actually have. This means you need to keep a lookout for time sinks. Time sinks. The 2 boxes on the left of the chart below are time sinks. Sometimes there's simply no avoiding time sinks. If you work in an office and the printer gets jammed when you need to use it, you'll have no choice but to start putting the trays out and looking for that annoying stuck sheet of paper. But does this mean you should be spending your spare moments learning about printer technology? Hardly. Wouldn't it be great if there was some way you could determine what the wrong things to do are ahead of time? As it happens, there is. How to know what the right thing to do is. Essentially, the right things to do are the activities that bring you closer to your goal. Here's an example from work. Your task is to increase the company's sales by X%. You should be spending your time prospecting for new clients, making phone calls, and visiting clients to perform extensive needs analysis. Since your intention is also to do it the right way and actually bring in some business, you'll also spend a great deal of time writing up estimates and performing follow-up activities. You will be constantly refining your sales techniques. That's how sales growth happens. Spending time on customer processing activities without making any sales would be doing the right things the wrong way. An example from a non-professional setting, you're building a patio for the house. You measure and plot it out, maybe making a sketch of your desired outcome. Since you've done this before, you know what you need. Concrete plinths, gravel, joists, and so on. You calculate what materials you'll need and try to estimate how long it's all going to take. After this, you put your plan into action. You also spend some time on rather dull yet essential preparations by digging up the old lawn. If you have the right tools and the right materials, the whole operation will proceed smoothly. However, if you get lots of deckling lumber and screws but keep forgetting to pick things up at the hardware store and have to go back and forth 5 times, it's questionable whether this will be an efficient project. Doesn't everyone forget stuff? Of course, but driving around all day isn't a useful step in project build a patio. If you do a sloppy job on the foundation, the patio will start sagging after a year or two. This would be doing the right thing the wrong way. It would also be a huge waste of time. Now, you might be thinking that all this isn't a huge deal. It's only a little patio project. And you're right, it's not necessarily a big deal. At least, assuming you're one of the lucky people who happen to have too much time on their hands as opposed to not enough. If that's you, you've just been wasting time on the wrong thing. Reading about how to save time is obviously wasteful if you find yourself having trouble filling your days. I'm joking, of course. The missing piece for truly maximizing your time. In order to make absolutely sure you know what the right thing is, we'll need to factor in the complex variable known as time. Let's say you need the patio finished this week. That will suddenly change your options significantly. You might have to consider outsourcing the whole job to a professional. That will get it done quicker and usually better too. Therefore, the correct definition of the right thing to do is this: the thing that brings you closer to your goal at the intended time. This means that the correct diagram should actually look like this. The right thing at the right time depends on your goal. That amazing, exciting goal that there is no way you'll forget. That determines what you should be doing on the days when you have a little time left over. What's the right thing to do right now? Something that's wrong in one moment might be right at another time. Something that's wrong for you might be right for somebody else. It's confusing, I know. That's precisely why timing is so important. This isn't an exact science either. You can do whatever you feel like at any given moment too. You're under no obligation to do things the way I've suggested. However, if you want to get the things you've decided to do done when you decided to do them, it makes sense to ask yourself this: what's the right thing to do right now? Stick a yellow sticky note on your computer screen, on your bathroom mirror, on your kitchen fan, on your steering wheel, on the side of your sunglasses. Set an alarm on your smartphone so it'll go off once an hour during your work hours to ask you, what's the right thing to do right now? Stop wasting time as though it were an unlimited resource. You might say that life is long, and it is. However, it's also quite short, and I can't imagine how dreadful it would be to face the end of it thinking that I used the only life I was given for the wrong things. It's time you took your time seriously. Nothing is more valuable than the time you have. It's an asset you can never get more of, that can't be restored once it has gone by. You can't stockpile it, and you can't trade for it and purchase more time. Time is actually the single most important resource you have. While you can feasibly get more of everything else, time is constant. When you're young, it's easy to imagine that there's so much time that nothing you do really matters. I'll just work twice as hard tomorrow instead. But that's just self-deception. You could have done that anyway and had an even bigger edge than everybody else. The older you get, the more often that rather unpleasant thought that time is not unlimited will come over you. Do you feel that you use your time for important things? Do you feel that you spend it on valuable activities? Are you doing something positive with the time you have? Does it energize you to be spending your waking hours on the things you're actually spending them on? If your answer is yes, I can only congratulate you. If the answer is no, you need to rethink things. Think again and get it right. And stop wasting time and energy on the wrong things.